In this tutorial I will show you how to make this simple HTML, JavaScript, CSS stopwatch. You can just click on start, it's starting to stop the time, and then you can stop it or you can reset. I've prepared a GitHub repository where you can just check out the index.html to see what exactly we are aiming for during this tutorial and what's the final code to achieve this stopwatch. So let's start with coding. For this project we're just going to create an empty folder. Let's say it's called stopwatch. We are opening it with an editor of our choice. I will use VS Code here. I will make it a little bit larger so you can see all in the video as well. We are creating a file index.html where all our logic goes into. I just need to define that it's syntax highlighted using HTML, and we are just starting with our standard skeleton for HTML. You can just Google that one, HTML default template. There are just boilerplate, there are just some things which definitely need to go into it. You need to define a doc type, you need to define language, and so on and so forth. We are just saying stopwatch over here. We don't need the style. We don't need the style sheet. We don't need the icon at the moment. And here we go with our static content for the stopwatch. Starting to implement this first. So we are going to use Pico as a CSS design framework. I can just open this one here. Some other familiar ones are, for example, Bootstrap, but I use this because I like the style of Pico. We are copying the link of the style sheet, inserting it here. Then we are going into our body. We're making a box or a card, which is defined by article. We wanted to give it a class to later style it properly. We call it stopwatch, and inside of this we are having some div containers. One which we name display for displaying the time. At the moment we are just using default static value over here, and then we wanted to have some buttons for sure. I will just say ID buttons. And inside here we define two buttons for our stopwatch. The first one is the start or stop button, and we just put in text start. The second one is the reset button. We just give it another ID, reset button. And this is it for the basic structure of our stopwatch HTML. I'm going to open this in the browser so you can have a look at what it's looking like. Here we go, and now we wanted to continue with some more styling so it looks better. We first want to concentrate on the body to make it look better and with the box in the center. So we are going to introduce a style tag over here, and we say for our body we wanted to have width 100 VW, which means the whole width of the device or of the browser. For the height the same, 100% of the viewport height. And we wanted to have display flags to align our items in the center, justify content center as well. And for the background I just browsed this site over here. Where is it? This one. And I just wanted to use one of those gradient. It's pretty easy. You just click on copy and we insert it over here. So now we have a good starting point for our body. It's styled properly. And now I wanted to go and styling the other elements. First of all, the stopwatch box. And we're doing so by referencing the class stopwatch. We make it a little bit bigger, so we give it more width, so it's going over the whole screen or 60% of the screen. And we also wanted to lay out the time which is displayed. We wanted to design it better, and for this reason we are just going to reference ID display We set it to width 100%. It should be a little bit larger. We are also going for larger font size. We are using a RAM here. Font weight, bold one to make the text a little bit more bold. We use a little padding to make it look better, 10 pixel. We also use a little border, so we have a little bit more rounded corners. We're saying the border should be 2 pixel and it should be a solid one with the color 333, which is a quite dark one. We also wanted to define the border radius, which defines how round the border looks like. So it's a little bit curved right now. We are using a different background color because we wanted to make it better visible. We are using that one. It's a quite bright one. And we also set margin button to 20 pixels, so we have a little bit space below the display. We're just going to check this out again. This is looking way better right now. And the last thing we are going to do here with the styling, it's just styling the button section. So for this one, we only wanted to make the buttons have a little bit better alignment. We say justify content space around. This is a pretty good one for our purpose, and we also need to define display flex here in order to make it work. So here we go. That's good for the styling. And finally, we are going to write some code to make our stopwatch working. Because when you click on start or reset, nothing happens at the moment, and we need to add programming logic to work properly. So for this reason, we are just going to introduce a script tag where we write our JavaScript code. And at first I wanted to define some variables which we need. The first one is the timer, which is going to update our stopwatch frequently. We will define an interval for that later. We also need a Boolean variable is running to define if the stopwatch is currently running or not. And we are introducing variables for the milliseconds. Milliseconds equals 0. Seconds, we also need a let here. Seconds equal to 0. We are going to add the minutes as well, also 0 at the moment. And finally the hours, also 0. Okay, and this is all our variables we need outside of our functions. And let's start by writing our JavaScript functions. We first go with start. Stop, because I want to have it that way that when you click on the start button, it's automatically turning into a stop button and the stopwatch turns on. And when you hit the button again, it should stop. So we have this function start stop. We say if our Boolean variable is running, if it's not running, then we create a new timer. So we do that by using the JavaScript function setInterval, which is calling a function in a certain frequency. So I want to call the function update time, which I define later on, and I wanted to execute that every 33 milliseconds. Because that's roughly a frame rate of 30, which we wanted to have for our stopwatch. You can play around with this value, but I think 30 FPS is okay for now. Now we wanted to set the text of our start or stop button. So we wanted to change the text. We are going to do that by get element by ID. We wanted to get start stop button. And finally, we wanted to set the text content to stop because we just started the stopwatch and now it should turn into a stop button. If that's not the case, if it's running, so this is a little bit of weird logic, but if it's not running, we are executing this. If it's running, then we wanted to clear the interval. We wanted to stop the timer. We wanted to stop executing the update time function. And we also wanted to change the text of our start stop button. And oops, sorry for that. We wanted to make it a start button once again. Let's go for this. And finally, for both of the cases, we wanted to switch the Boolean. So if it's running, we wanted to set it to not running. If it's not running, we wanted to set it to is running. And this is it. The next function we are going to write is the update time function. So we wanted to update our time every 33 milliseconds using the setInterval function to call this method over here. But we first need to define it. So we're going to write this function and we say we just add 33 to our milliseconds variable. If our milliseconds are larger or equal to 1000, we wanted to increment our seconds. So then we also wanted to subtract 1000 from the milliseconds variable. If seconds is equal to 60, if we just have reached 60 seconds, then seconds is going to 0 and minutes is going up by 1. If minutes is equal to 60, I think you got the idea, but anyways, if it's going to 60, we set minutes to 0 and we increment hours by 1. You can also go and introduce a days variable, and whenever hours reach 24, you can add another day to the variable, but we are just doing it with milliseconds, seconds, minutes and hours for now. So this one is just updating our variables, and what we wanted to do next is we wanted to display this time or the stopped time amount in the document tree. So for this we are going to get element by ID and we are going to fetch the display, so this one where our time should go into. And now we need to do a little bit of text formation. For this reason I will just write a function in a second. We call that format time. And we put in our variables because the idea is, and I can show that to you, the idea is, let's say we have 2 seconds measured. Then what we wanted to have inside of the stopwatch is we wanted to have 0, 2, because otherwise it looks quite weird. You know what I mean? When we just have 0, 0 hours, 0, 0 minutes, 1 second. That looks quite weird. So we wanted to have a function which is just taking the number and add a leading 0 if it's below 10. So more about this in a second, but for now we are just adding together all our variables. So first the hours, then we are going to use the minutes, then we are going to use the seconds, and finally, we are going to use the milliseconds. All right, and now we can introduce this new function, format time. It's a pretty simple one. Function format time. We are just expecting a value as a parameter, and we return if time is smaller than 10, leading 0 plus time, and otherwise we are just returning time. Just see, sorry, this one's missing over here, and now it's working. It's just checking this condition. If it's true, it's returning this. If it's false, it's returning this one. So pretty straightforward. And the next thing we wanted to implement is the reset timer function. So we are going to write a new function, reset. We clear the interval. We are resetting the timer. So the function is not executed anymore. So our update time function is not executed anymore. We also just wanted to reset the display for this, the display of the document tree. So this one over here. We are just fetching our element for that purpose. So we're saying document.getElementById display, and then text content equals to, we're just copying that here. Okay, we also need to change some variables for sure. Is running is equal to false right now, which makes a lot of sense. And we also wanted to reset all these variables which are counting our time. We want to reset the milliseconds, the hours, and we finally also want to reset the minutes. So the last thing we want to do is we want to make, we want to change the content of our start stop button, because the logic is that we click on start, the stopwatch is running, and then when we click on reset, the stopwatch stopped, and we wanted to have text start in our start stop button. So we can just copy that over here, we can paste that, and I think we are nearly done with that. The only other thing we need to do is we need to connect all the functions we have written to our document tree. So for this, we can just use @eventListener. We are going to use document.getElementById. We wanted to first add function execution to our start stop button. So we're just getting element by ID start stop button, and then we say @listener, @eventListener, click whenever the user clicks on the button. We wanted to execute the function start stop, pretty straightforward. And then we are going to have another event listener for the reset button for sure. So the reset button has the ID reset button. We are going to change this over here so we have the right element, and on click we just wanted to execute the reset function. Here we go. Hope I don't missed anything. We can just test it in the browser. Let's see. Nothing changed, but I click on start, stopwatch is starting. When I click on reset, it's stopping. When I click on start again, starting again. When I click on stop, it's stopping, and we can resume the stopwatch. So it's all working. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If it helped you in any way, I would really appreciate a subscription, and best of luck with your web development journey.